Is Morphe dropping James Charles? I'm going to give you all the evidence, all the tea, all the spicy diarrhea today. I hope you all sat down. I hope you got the titties strapped in. Let's get straight into the video. Hello and welcome back. My name is John. This is KUCKIAN's Courtroom. I hope you're excited for a video today. We're going to be discussing James Charles being dropped by Morphe, if it's happening, if it's just a rumour, why everyone is talking about it. James Charles is a 21-year-old beauty YouTuber from Los Angeles/New York City. He's sort of been staying all over the place. He's been doing very well. He's had a lot of success in the past few years. Found himself in a massive scandal recently because a young boy came forward saying that James Charles was grooming him, basically saying that he was asking this young boy for naked photographs and was sending the boy naked photographs, and the young boy was uncomfortable. Now, since that happened, James Charles denied it, but the boy came through with some actual hard evidence that there was a conversation and that he blocked James Charles. And since that happened, another boy has come forward posting something on a live stream, which only was seen by like 64 people, but got posted on Twitter, and I saw it and covered it in my last James Charles video. And since that, multiple other boys have come forward saying that they've had conversations with James Charles in the past via Snapchat and various other apps, and they have been young minors, underage, and they've been incredibly uncomfortable because James Charles has put pressure on them to send nudes. That's what they're saying anyway. Again, we don't yet have hard evidence to validate these claims, but we do have evidence. People aren't just saying things. There are actual pictures and screenshots of stuff being said, and we do know for a fact that James Charles has asked at least one boy that was 16 years old for nudes, right? So this whole thing with Morphe is a big deal because James is one of Morphe's sort of last big influencers that they're really working with, because they used to be an influencer driven brand, but now they have stores, they're promoting different brands, but they do these big collections every year. And before it was Jaclyn Hill, that kind of went downhill. Then of course we had Nikki Tutorials, I think for a short time, kind of went downhill because it burnt out. She did it a bit too much. Then we had Jaclyn again, then we had the Jaclyn Hill palette, then we had the James Charles palette. They were doubling their prices but not really giving that much more in return. But Morphe was taken under new management, so the company does seem to be run a lot more professionally than previously. They've been doing a mass expansion of stores and stuff like that, which I don't know how that will have gone with COVID. They also dropped Laura Lee when she had her massive scandal with the racism and stuff like that. They also dropped Jeffree Star when he was finally, for the 160th however many times, exposed for just being a racist, horrible person, which was a big move from Morphe, a really big move, and I actually gained a lot of respect for them after that. If Morphe reached out to me today and had a conversation with me, I would talk to them, because after dropping Jeffree, that was a big move for them. He was one of the last sort of influencers that they worked with, and they do still work with influencers, they do still do collabs, they are still relevant, but they're just not working with the toxic gang of people at the very top. Morphe has not released any official statement regarding dropping James Charles. They haven't shown any intention of doing that, despite how serious the allegations are. I do think we need to wait and see who comes forward, what evidence happens, and if things do end up going through the police, just to see what happens and what hard evidence is there. With Jeffree, for example, there was video footage of him yelling, the N-word at people in the street, and tweets of him coming after black girls consistently, and all the various other things. Whereas with this whole thing with James, we do have evidence that he was messaging a minor, but we don't know for definite if James was aware that he was a minor, which doesn't make it any better. But at the same time, like, James is pleading that he didn't know, whereas the minor is saying my age is on my TikTok, right? So there's this whole, we're not quite sure what's happened, we don't have solid evidence yet. Again, the boy claimed that he told James he was 16, and James then proceeded to ask for nudes, but we don't have the screenshots of that, so we can't validate that. However, the boy did say that he went to the police about it, so that is another thing we will have to wait and see. Now, in terms of my opinion on this, now that we're in the middle of the story, if it's true that James Charles has done this, I do think it would be the responsible thing for Morphe to drop them. I think there's a lot of influencers around nowadays. James is really big, but ultimately it's these brands and these stores that control how fast these influencers grow. So as much as the stores might feel the influencers are what drives sales, it's actually the stores that sort of make the influencers socially relevant to a certain extent, right? Because if Morphe wasn't doing a collab, James would be doing some, private label palette probably with someone and saying it's his own formula, whatever. And it just wouldn't be the same as having store access. So I do think it will be socially responsible for Morphe moving forward in a climate where being socially responsible is very fashionable, let's just say. A lot of brands have been picking up on it. I do think it would be the right thing for them to do, absolutely. I think everyone makes mistakes, but the issue is if you do something continuously over and over again, despite getting hit in the face with a scandal in the past for doing the same behaviour, that's no longer a mistake. That's premeditated decision-making scandal material, right? That's someone knowing what's right and wrong and choosing to do wrong. And that's very, very different from whoopsie, something happened 5 years ago, or I did something wrong, or I didn't realise, or I did something bad but I regret it. Do you see what I mean? Now, people think James is going to be dropped because of the Jeffree situation, because Jeffree was dropped by Morphe, Laura Lee was dropped by Morphe. A lot of these influencers have faded out of social relevance, right? But James still does seem to be very socially relevant. You know, he plays his cards very well, and he does his TikTok, he has his YouTube. I think this scandal is going to be one to see, but you have to remember, James has had some big scandals in the past. He had the KKK scandal where he posted some tweets joking about the KKK, the Ebola scandal where he basically insinuated everyone in Africa had Ebola, and then obviously the various different ring light scandals. I don't even need to go about them. Just search on my channel, just go to my videos, or I've got a playlist, probably James Charles. If you're interested in James, you can see the history over the past 5 years or so. Now, Jeffree was only dropped last year in 2019 by Morphe. It seems like they're getting big enough. They don't really have to rely on influencers anymore like they used to, and I think they gained respect in a lot of people's eyes by finally dropping Jeffree. Although, of course, there is that question, why wasn't he dropped earlier, right? But I think definitely he could have clapped back at Morphe if he was dropped early, whereas they waited for the moment where he sort of tipped in popularity. So it was kind of less likely that they would get a negative backlash from him specifically because he was under so much fire at the time. Now, something that's also controversial, like Jeffree, by the way, just to throw this in there, I'm sure he took out a COVID loan for his company. And I heard through the pipe works, he's currently trying to secure a large amount of credit, like a large loan. But again, I can't confirm that. I don't know if he's trying to buy out his brand, because it seems that his business partners are in some, seem to be liquidating the brand. The palettes are being sold 50% off. I've seen the liquid lipstick selling for just a few dollars. It seems like they're trying to burn them. We also had that video previously a few weeks ago where we looked at the stock levels and it looked like the stock wasn't selling. I mean, they told Jeffree Star we sold out in 5 minutes. It looked like they had 50,000 units of a few different shades and they'd only sold 3,000, 4,000 of these shades. They weren't really moving. So definitely something just to keep in mind. That's a large number of units to have sat there. And maybe Jeffree's just scared that it's going to completely destroy his image if the brand is shut down, because he might not be a majority shareholder in his own brand. Brands like Kat Von D, for example, when she was involved, to the best of my knowledge from my inside sources, Kat Von D was not a majority shareholder in Kat Von D Beauty. She actually owned a relatively small percentage, just like you would expect from Marc Jacobs Beauty, both brands of which are owned by Kendo, which you would expect would have a majority share. I'm going to read to you the statement that was made on the 10th of July by Morphe Brushes. So on the 10th of July, Morphe said, "Today we made the decision to cease all commercial activity related to Jeffree Star and affiliated products. We expect this to conclude within the coming weeks. As we look to the future, we will continue to share updates on what lies ahead for the Morphe brand." Very exciting. That was a huge moment for Morphe. One thing I will say is that there was actually a retailer that I was interested in working with. I hadn't pursued them or emailed them or gone through any channels. The retailer was called Beautylish, and as soon as Morphe dropped Jeffree, for obvious social reasons, with the 10 years, 15 years of horrible stories and scandals, Beautylish just picked up that brand. And if you Google now, it's like a paid search result at the top, I'm pretty sure, is like Beautylish trying to sell his products. And I don't know if that's just for the UK, it could be for the US as well. But I thought that was really disappointing, and that was a retailer that before this point was very neutral and didn't really have any scandals surrounding them. But you know what? There are a lot of big influencers, like James tries to manage his propaganda and bury this story of him asking for nudes from minors. Jeffree tries to, bury all the various scandals he's had over the years with the racism. And the consumers say no. But I think it's really disappointing when the stores come through and act like nothing's happened just because they can make some dollar from it. Like, you can say, oh, a store's purpose is to make money, a business's purpose is to make money. And I'm like, that's true. But you also have a responsibility to have your own code of ethics. That code of ethics can be no ethics, but if that's the case, I won't purchase from you. And I think it's just disappointing, and I hope in the future, that Beautylish follows in the steps of every other retailer and reconsiders the brands that they do and don't promote and sell, because that says a lot about their message about what they do and don't support as a brand and as a company. Because if they actively sell a brand, Jeffree Star Cosmetics by Jeffree Star with his face on the brand, with the past 15 years of bullying and racism, that just says that that's what their brand is about. And I do hope that, like Morphe, they'll change their voice in the future. I'm going to read a tweet to you that was posted. So the tweet says, "James Charles must be held accountable for his disgusting actions. We as a community need to hold him responsible. Morphe Brushes should address the situation and drop his products. Hashtag James Charles, hashtag Predator, hashtag Morphe." Now, this is one thing to say here, the pressure would have to be put onto Morphe specifically. There's no point putting the pressure onto James, saying, James Charles, you should be dropped by Morphe. It's Morphe's customers that will drive Morphe's buying habits in terms of the product that they buy. And if they're, obviously with James Charles, they're making it, there's a difference, but that's just something to remember as well. So, James Charles palette with Morphe, it was supposed to be the best-selling one of that year. I mean, it was a huge collaboration. Now, there was a whole story, I'm sure, as well, that Jaclyn Hill, back in the day, and this was some tea that was brought to me, right? She allegedly had Jeffree Star's brush collection that he made with Morphe pushed back because she wanted to be the Morphe girl that year, right, doing her palette. So she'd allegedly had that pushback like 18 months, and then eventually it wasn't even released. So that's something worth mentioning. I just thought I'd throw that in there for some extra tea. Just for anyone wondering, by the way that it works with Morphe for most influencers that work with them is if you use a Morphe product and then someone uses your code at checkout to save 10%, you also get 10%. The person that promotes the product also gets 10% commission. This is a very, very common commission-based structure. It's a way for influencers to gain a little bit back by giving screen time to brands. I personally have an affiliates program with my brand as well, and it's very, very similar, except I think mine is actually way better. Mine's like double actually. But that's why in the past, I don't know how much it happens now, but in the past, Morphe became a dirty word at one point because influencers were just constantly filling every single video with Morphe products. So I remember Kim Tai being one of the people who now sort of pieced out from YouTube. She was someone that was big promoted by Naked Tutorials, grew really quickly, and then just didn't know where to go with it, and it sort of burnt out into nothing. But she was really heavy on the Morphe palettes, and it was just so obvious, and Nikki was as well, and so was Jacqueline, and it was kind of just like an unpleasant experience watching these people constantly promote the same products over and over again, and it's just so obvious. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to smash the like button. Every time you do, a titty flies into space. And if you've enjoyed the video, definitely consider subscribing. I post videos here all the time, and I do also have an ASMR channel and a tech channel, which I will link down below, Cookie ASMR and Cookie Tech. So I want to say a huge thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.